Welcome to IGC Let's Talk About It. I'm Kieran, and this is Tania from Lektou, who is a senior associate at the firm. Today we're discussing the difference between land-based casinos and online casinos and the differences between the two. So, welcome. Would you
Thank
like to
you.
give a bit of an introduction about your history and your experience within the industries?
Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation to be here today and to have the chance to talk about these such important matters for me personally and for the industry. Well, I first started working with gaming back in 2008 when I decided to move to Macau. I was going for an adventure, and that was my first contact with the gaming. Online gaming came a bit later. When I arrived in Macau, I worked with a couple of operators, land-based operators in Macau. Initially, I worked as a consultant. Then I worked as a legal counsel in the field, let's say. And when I came back to Portugal, that's when I decided I would join the firm, and we started working on with online gambling. We provide assistance to operators, to providers, suppliers, its affiliates, a wide range of services.
What are the main regulatory challenges faced by online casinos and land-based casinos?
So they both have strict rules. So we are talking about very tightened licensing procedures, for instance. And they differ from country to country as well. Different jurisdictions have different requirements. So I'm focusing on Portugal right now, where we have the first big difference is how to operate. So we are talking about a country where the gaming is an activity that it belongs to the government. Government is the one who has the power to run the business. So it means that when we are operating land-based casino, we need to go through a tender to get a concession, and this comes with the very tightened rules. For online is slightly easier because it's a license instead of a concession, so you don't have to go through a tender. You still need to follow all the legal requirements, which are very strict as well, but not as much as on the land base. On the land base, you have rules for the space that you are opening, for the stuff that you are running, for the number of tables that you will be able to operate. While in the online, you still have to follow the rules, but it's slightly easier to get the license.
Are there specific jurisdictions that are more difficult to operate a land-based casino or an online casino?
So it will differ from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. While you have some jurisdictions where it's easier to operate a land-based casino strictly because online gambling is forbidden, like for instance China or North Korea, then there are other countries where online is much easier than the land-based, and you have the case of Malta or Gibraltar because they have easier straightforward regulations for online licensing. Then you have other countries applying different restrictions for online and land-based casinos, such as you have Germany or you have France, where they have a very tight regulatory system and it's hard to get a license. Or then you have the Portuguese case, as I mentioned before, where for the land-based you need to get a concession. This happens in some US states and also in Macau. Then you have other places where it's hard to get in business because you have a limited number of licenses, like it happens in Singapore or in Japan. So it
Mhm.
makes harder to a land-based operator start a business there. And then you have countries where it's forbidden, like the Middle East. So different jurisdictions impose different regulations for both gaming operations, and it depends on the jurisdiction.
So, how do AML requirements differ from land-based and online casinos?
So this is all related to the operational models, right? So when you have a land-based operation, you have an AML policy relying mostly on staff, on training. You have all the other rules that you have for online gaming. You have the reporting, you have the tracking of suspicious activities, you have the big transactions that you need to keep an eye on them. But when you do it land based, you have stuff looking at it. When you are doing online, it ends up to be a little bit easier because you rely on technology. You have the systems that will pop up when there's something suspicious. So you have the same kind of obligations, reporting, monitoring, everything. The difference is how you do it.
Are there distinct challenges with enforcing responsible gaming on online casinos versus physical casinos?
Well, responsible gaming is a big topic, both in both operation methods. And here we have a higher difficulty while operating online because you don't see the person who's sitting behind the screen. So I would say that in theory, they both face strong requirements in this aspect, in this regard. They need to follow strict rules about this. And the big difference will be, again, the way they do it. So while on land-based casinos, you have the staff registering the client, verifying, doing the know your customer procedures, verifying his identity, and the staff is there watching the game. So can, if the staff is well trained, they can understand where we may have a problem. While in the online system, you don't see the person, so you have some difficulties with know your customer process. You don't verify original documents, you rely on copies, so you don't know exactly if the person is the same. So you have some kind of consumer protection problems, you have some kind of know your customer problems and difficulties and challenges. And then you have the responsible gaming problem as well, because it's harder. You can see the numbers. You have, once again, technology, which can make you understand when you have a problem, but it's harder to enforce. How do you enforce that? How do you assure that the person who you suspect to have a problem will follow your program? It's harder. So I think that those are the main difference.
So, do you see a stronger regulatory push towards online gaming, especially when it comes to live verification?
Well, technology may help. Okay, we have AI working in our favor here, but still, it needs to be regulated. It needs to be implemented, and we are still far from that. Because even if you have, for instance, the verification, online verification of the documents you are submitting while opening an account, because the operator will have the chance to make sure this is the person, this ID is valid. Still, you open the account, you give all the data, but then when someone logs in, you don't know who that is. So yes, I think that will be very helpful, and I think AI will help a lot, but it's in the long run. We still need, and that needs to be highly regulated as well, because AI can also be very, very dangerous.
So, we discussed a bit about the security threats. What are the security threats to online casinos, and how do they differ from the security threats that you have on land based casinos?
So once again, we are talking about the way the business operates. While on online, well, starting on the land-based, it's physical connection. Like you have physical people in front of you, and the threats are physical. You have the theft, you have the fraud, you have it's physical, the crowds containing and everything. While on online, you have other kind of threats, such as cybersecurity, cyber attacks, phishing, scams, ransomware. You have, everything is online, so it's easier to get your operation threatened by a third party. Even though on land-based casinos it's different, we need to consider that we're living in a digital era, and that everything is coming digital. And even the land-based casinos, even if they are face-to-face business, they still have all the storage, all the data storage online. So all the systems are working. Even the way they start communicating with their clients, it's mostly online. So there's still cybersecurity concerns and data privacy concerns while we are working on land-based. But this increase when you are working on digital, right? Because the threat is very actual and it's very, very high.
So, how do advertising regulations differ between online and land-based casinos?
So, speaking about Portuguese regulations, they don't differ. Okay, we have very general rules for advertising, and they apply both online and land-based. So I guess the most challenging thing while operating in this market will be when you are online business and you are operating in different jurisdictions and you want to advertise in different places, because there are limitations. And then when you are operating in different countries, you need to comply with the different regulations from the different spaces. So if you are operating in Portugal, but you want to advertise in Spain, there are restrictions and you need to follow the Spanish restrictions, even though you have licenses in both countries. So I think those are the main challenges for the online advertising regulations. And I must say, we don't have, it's not very strict regulation. So it's very vague and sometimes hard to understand.
How do issues of fraud and financial risk compare between the two types of casinos?
Online casinos face specific liability concerns due to their digital nature. So we have specific regulations and we have all the regulatory framework trying to protect the consumer, the player. And then we have the responsibility of the online operator to make sure that everything follows the rules. So they struggle with the issues that we've been discussing before, like the know your customer and the potential fraud. And the cybersecurity is mainly at risk because it's increasing every day, the cyber attacks on data storage, on communications, on ransomware, so it's harder to implement measures that can guarantee that there's no fraud, that limit the risk of the operators.
What are the legal implications of game fairness and transparency online versus land-based casinos?
So both online and land-based casinos are obliged to comply with the fairness or to assure fairness and transparency on the operations. The difference relies on the environment they are operating in. So once again, while on the online, they rely strictly on technology. When you are talking about land-based, you need to rely on people. You need to rely on the operational training so people can do that service for you.
What labour law challenges are unique to land-based casinos, especially with large workforces?
So when we are working online, we don't need to have a human structure in place. There are certain positions that need to be fulfilled, and the regulator is very open in controlling who's doing that and if they have the technical capacity to do it. So, but they can be anywhere in the world, so there's no labor law problems for this. When you have a land-based casino, you have a long list of employees that you need to handle. And then you need to work with visa requirements when we are handling workers from foreign countries. And you need to follow the labor law, which is different from country to country. So yeah, an operator, a land-based operator, if he's operating in different jurisdictions, he needs to follow the different rules for their employees. And yes, it's manpower. It's always hard to work with people.
What emerging legal issues do you see impacting online and land-based casinos?
So I would say both land-based and online operations need to deal with the continuous change in regulations. And I think this is a trend, especially because some believe, and I believe too, we should have a more widened regulatory framework for operators using different or operating in different jurisdictions to make it more steady, to make it more easy for them to follow the rules. So I think compliance with a continuous change legal environment, it's always hard. And then you have the new technologies, and I think this is where the big challenges will stand, because you have cryptocurrency, you have AI, you have all of this, the digital era. And even when you are working in land-based, as I've mentioned, you still storage your data in digital world, you still deal with your clients online. So I think this will affect both land-based and online operations.
So how do you see the relationship between online and land-based casinos evolving over the next 5 to 10 years from a legal aspect?
So I would like to see the lines blurring. I would like to see both areas of business working together in the same operator and following the same rules. I would like to see, as mentioned earlier, a worldwide harmonization of the regulatory compliance. I would like to see online gaming legalized in all the countries, no more black markets. This is where I would like us to go. And I think the regulation will need to improve a lot, and countries' jurisdictions need to be open to that, to understand the markets are changing, the AI, the new technologies, the cryptocurrency, the blockchain, all that brings new challenges to the business, and the regulatory needs to follow this. We need to implement new rules that will allow us to grow in this field, but still respecting fairness and protecting the consumer.
Perfect. I just want to say really quick thank you for your time and all your answers today. But what I want to finish on is your advice on what you would give to new entrants into both land and online casinos, and spaces regarding legal compliance about that.
So stay informed, know the business, know the places, get appropriate advice. So it's very important when you go into a new jurisdiction that you get manpower there, people who know the place, who know the culture, who know the laws, and can give you proper advice. So seek for a good lawyer and stay informed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching this meeting. Massive thank you to Tania and the team at Lektou for your answers. Join us again next time on IGC. Let's talk about it. We'll see you there.